To today's live webinar entitled How to Develop a Mobile Paid and Organic Search Strategy. There will be a question and answer session at the conclusion of today's program. To provide feedback on today's live webinar, you can access the survey tab in the presentation tool at the end of the program. The survey will also be emailed to you following today's program. If you need operator assistance during the call, please press star, then 0 on your touch-tone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. At this time, I would like to turn the call over to your host, Mr. McKay Allen. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Appreciate it, and we're excited that everybody's here today. Thanks to Lorman for putting this together and for inviting me to participate. The title of today's presentation is How to Develop a Mobile Paid and Organic Search Strategy. So we're going to talk about a few tactics to how to do that. I anticipate the presentation taking about 45 minutes. That should leave about 10 to 15 minutes for questions. So let's hop right in and get started. First, a little bit about me. As you said, my name is McKay Allen. I'm the Inbound Marketing Manager at Log My Calls. We are a call analytics and call tracking provider. More on who we are and why we have a little bit of expertise in this area in a moment. I have spoken at events like Search Engine Strategies, SMX, and Social Media Strategies Summit, published content in Mobile Marketer, Direct Marketing News, Search Engine Journal, and elsewhere. And then we also actually host a webinar series of our own called the Log My Calls webinar series. You can see those presentations, past presentations, as well as register for future presentations on logmycalls.com/webinar. So I've interviewed probably 95 marketing experts on those webinars in the last 13, 14 months. So it's been a fantastic resource for marketers to learn more about really useful marketing subjects. So go there. You can watch those videos for free and register for webinars as well. So what is Log My Calls? Log My Calls is a call tracking and call analytics tool for marketers of all types. So essentially what call tracking does, basic call tracking, is it tells marketers which ads, campaigns, and keywords generate phone calls and which don't. So it can tell you, okay, you got this many phone calls from Google AdWords, from these specific ads or ad groups. This many calls were generated from your organic efforts on Google. This number of calls was generated from your directory listing, or whatever. And so it can really get granular into how much data you're able to extract from phone calls. And then importantly for today's purposes, it can tell you which phone calls were generated from mobile means and which mobile landing pages, mobile ads, etc. But basic call tracking, we believe, isn't enough. It's not enough just to give referring source. That's why we built a tool called Conversation Analytics, which actually analyzes the content of the call itself. So it literally goes through the phone call using speech recognition technology and extracts data from the call. So we can pull things out like lead score, lead quality, buying propensity, are they sales ready, are they price sensitive, all sorts of things from the call. Did they set up an appointment, did they buy something? We can extract all of that data from the call itself using our proprietary speech recognition technology and conversation analytics tool. One more note on the company before we jump into the content. We are the winner of the Global Amazon Web Services Startup competition. So there were 2,500 companies that applied, that competed, and we won. Amazon loved our technology, loved conversation analytics, and loved what we're trying to do in the call tracking space. So long story short, if you're a marketer of any type and doing any level of advertising, basic call tracking is at least something you need, and conversation analytics is something that you should look into to see if you need it, because it's useful information that can help you make a lot more money. Now let's hop in and talk about a few mobile basics. So mobile, we know, is exploding. This is not a secret. It's been written about in a variety of places. Almost every research paper that Gartner or Forrester or a group like that puts out has something to do with mobile in today's market, whether it's about social media or about lead gen or about cost per acquisition. All of these data points are now sort of rotating around the mobile world. And so mobile really is starting to take over the marketing landscape dramatically. So this is kind of a funny way to start the presentation a little bit. So there's a study done, and they've done variations on this in the last several years. This is the most recent version of their study. This was done just 2 or 3 months ago. So what causes you the most stressed? What causes you the highest stress level? Losing someone's smartphone, so losing your own smartphone, was more stressful than losing a wedding ring, losing your wallet, or losing luggage. So if we lose our smartphone, and I know this is true for me, if I lost my smartphone, I would be pretty lost until I got a new one. And so this just shows you the importance of mobile in today's society, how pervasive it is, and how really our lives revolve around the data that we keep within our smartphones and those phones themselves. Now, it's important to remember as we move into the presentation that the primary consumption devices today are almost totally mobile. People use laptops and desktops to do a lot of work, but the consumption devices, the way we consume data, the way we get information about companies and products is almost totally mobile now, whether it's a tablet or a smartphone. So here's a few data points to set the scene. There are almost 8 billion people on the planet. About 5.1 billion of those people own a mobile phone, 4.2 billion own a toothbrush. It takes 90 minutes for the average person to respond to an email. It takes 90 seconds for the average person to respond to a text message. And just a note about text message marketing here. I was talking to the founder of a text message marketing company recently called Tatango, and he said that in about 97% of the cases, text messages are read. I know many an email marketer that would do horrific things to get a 97% email open rate, and that's exactly what text message marketing provides. And then this number is actually a year old, and so I anticipate the number is actually higher. 91% of all U.S. citizens have their mobile phone within arm's reach 24/7. I've read varying data points on that, some as high as 96 to 97%. So just think about that in terms of how you interact with your phone and how close it is to you and how pervasive it is in your life. Now, this is where we really start to get into the marketing data and where it becomes important for your business and if you're an agency for your clients' businesses. Mobile search, Google says, will surpass desktop search either this year or early next. This number has been pushed around since about 2010. Google was unsure exactly what the data was going to look like, but now as it gets closer, just like the weather forecast, right? 10 days out, it's pretty uncertain, but the day before, it's very certain what the next day's weather is going to be. Same thing with this. Google, as we get closer, as we get farther down the road, mobile search will surpass desktop search either this year or next. Now, what does that mean? Well, what it means on a macro level is that more people are conducting searches on their smartphones than they are on laptops or desktops. That's the first thing. The second thing, and this is for your business what it means, is that more people are going to start accessing your website and learning about you on their smartphone or tablet than on laptops or desktops. So not a plurality, not a large number, but a majority. More people will see your site on their smartphone than they will from a computer. So instead of today, it's okay, well, what does my site look like? We optimize for desktop, but what does it look like for mobile? In just the next couple of years, it's going to be totally flipped. We optimize for mobile, and then what it looks like on a desktop or a laptop is almost secondary. So that's a major shift and something that a lot of web design and internet marketing firms are trying to scramble to deal with. So mobile search, massive. Let's talk about local mobile searches a little bit and talk about that volume. So this is according to BIA-Kelsey. Now, this is just local mobile. So this is somebody in Austin, Texas, Googling tires, and they get local results. This is somebody in Atlanta Googling plumbers, and they get local results. So we're seeing they predict in 2015 you're going to see local mobile surpass desktop. So 2014, 2015, so local businesses, and then you can see in 2016 just a massive shift in 1 year. By 2016, you're going to see a huge disparity between mobile and desktop. And it's worth noting, too, that it's not like desktop is decreasing. It's decreasing in growth, to be sure, but it's not like plummeting down here. It's not like some bell curve type chart. It's just that mobile is growing quickly. People are searching more often because they can search whenever and wherever they want. When they're in line at the pharmacy, when they're in line at the grocery store, they conduct some Google searches. There's more searches being conducted. Now, this is an interesting data point that came out from Google in November of 2013. They did a huge study on local mobile search. And what they found was that the average smartphone owner does an average of 20 local mobile searches per month. So think about that. These are for businesses or services or products in your area. 20 a month. Now that actually seems kind of high if you look at it from a top level down, but if you think about it, I probably conduct 1 or 2 a day. Maybe it's for a contact info of a business I need to call. Maybe it's for a product I'm researching and I just have a second while I'm in line at the grocery store and I want to look. This is incredible data. It changes the entire marketing landscape. And then Google also says that year-over-year local mobile search growth will be about 130% for the foreseeable future. So this isn't just a one-time shot in the dark, an anomaly in the data. Google says that year-over-year, for as far out as they can see, we're talking about 130% year-over-year annual growth in local mobile search. So mobile searches are increasing. The next question then is, what do people do once they search? What are the actions they take? And that's what we'll talk about now. So about 70% of local mobile searchers call immediately after the search. This is incredibly groundbreaking data that Google released just in Q4 of 2013. The entire study can be found here. I'll just click through to it so you can see exactly what the study looks like. So Google, what they did, they partnered with Ipsos to do this study. They surveyed a bunch of businesses, and they found data that indicated, looks like we're not going to see the study after all, but they found data that indicated the actions people take after a mobile search. And calls are extremely prevalent, especially in the local mobile space. So just let this sink in. 70% of local mobile searchers call immediately after the search they conduct. So if someone searches for a tire store, they're going to call that tire store 70% of the time. If someone searches for a doctor or a dentist or a lawyer or a plumber or an electrician or whatever, they're going to call that business. That's important. In fact, in 2012, and the numbers are not in, B.A. Kelsey, who we got this data from, has not crunched the numbers for 2013 yet, and so it's a year old, but $68.4 billion were spent on advertising in 2012 to drive phone calls. We expect that number to go up, and probably substantially. So phone calls are critical when we're talking about mobile. The whole paradigm changes. It changes from form fills and web traffic, things that we look at now as important metrics. It now is about phone calls in the mobile space. So this is this data point here is the result of a study that the search agency did. They found that one phone call produced 3 times the revenue of one web lead. This is in today's environment too. So this is actually going to be more extreme in a mobile environment. But what they found was it took 3 web leads, so 3 form fills on their website, to produce the revenue that one phone call produced. That's in a B2B company. On a local space, the number is, again, more extreme. So phone calls are very valuable, and they produce a large, proportionally, the revenue that phone calls produce is substantial. Data that we've run in partnership with some other companies shows the following. So it's well known. The data is out there that shows about 2 to 3% of people who fill out a form will end up buying in the next 6 months. This is data from Marketing Sherpa and HubSpot. So about 2.5 to 3% who fill out a form will end up buying. On the other hand, phone calls, the average is about 35%. So it's about 10 times more likely to buy if you get a call, than somebody who fills out a web lead. So again, the power of phone calls is growing, and the number of phone calls will grow as mobile search increases. Remember that 130% increase in mobile search that we talked about? As that number goes up, continually 70% of that growing number will make phone calls. So the number of phone calls to businesses is going to increase. Just keep that in mind as you think about staffing, as you think about scheduling, and as you think about the tools that you use to measure your marketing. Instead of focusing only on web analytics, call tracking, call analytics are important as well, and growing in importance because of these data points. So let's talk about how effective mobile is, and then we'll get into some tactics. So Google says that 9 out of 10 mobile searchers take action after a smartphone search. We know that 70% of those are, in fact, making phone calls. The next most common action is a map lookup. So if they don't want to call the business, they want to go to the business. And then most mobile searchers actually take action within 1 hour. So this isn't a 2 or 3 day later buying cycle. People search on their mobile phone when they're ready to take action. They're thinking about it at the moment. They grab their phone. They don't want to do a bunch of in-depth research. They'd grab their laptop if they wanted to do that. Instead, they actually want to take action, which is why they're using the smartphone search to begin with. And you can see that what mobile ad spend is going to do over the next 2 years from where it was just in 2010, which was around $700 million to, in 2014, $6.4 billion. And this is where it starts to get a little frightening. So we had just talked about all these data points about mobile search being important and calls being important and all these things. And yet, the majority of small businesses still do not have a mobile site or even a mobile landing page. They just send people to the regular site. And even a large percentage, a plurality of medium-sized businesses don't have an effective mobile site or landing page. And then most importantly, these last 2 points, most agencies and marketers don't have a cogent mobile offering. So if you're an agency that's offering SEO or PPC services, most people still aren't offering a very useful mobile package, most agencies. Instead, they're just kind of bundling it into other stuff they do. They're not focusing on mobile. That's stunning when you consider that mobile search will become predominant this year or next. And increasingly, desktop and laptop results and websites are going to become an afterthought because of that. And then additionally, most marketers aren't tracking mobile phone calls effectively. And this is perhaps the most disturbing thing because, as we said, again, to reiterate, mobile search numbers are going to increase 130% year over year for the next forever, as far as Google can see. And 70% of those searches result in a phone call. And so for companies to not be tracking these calls, I don't know how they're going to make marketing decisions in the coming years. So let's talk a little bit about mobile SEO, some of the basics, some of the things to do and not to do. So where to start? This is, I think, just a few important bullet points. If you're going to take notes on anything, this would be the thing to take notes on. First is you need to have a mobile presence, which means your site is optimized for mobile and has a mobile-friendly functionality. So you can test this. I mean, use your smartphone, go to your website, try to navigate. Does it look good? Are things squished? Do you have to scroll around? If that's the case, your site is not mobile optimized. You can talk to, as I said, most agencies have the capability to help you with this. Or you can research it yourself as to how to get a mobile template and responsive design. And then there's a lot of companies that will provide you, companies like Duda Mobile and others, and @Mio is another one, that will allow you to create a mobile landing page very simply, very easily. It's maybe not a full-fledged mobile site, but it's a mobile landing page that will allow you to survive over the next couple of years while you're trying to get your mobile act together. As far as SEO, basic SEO rules still qualify. Search results are going to be in roughly the same order, except for in some cases when mobile sites are not good at all. The other thing that I've read several articles on in the last week or so is that, and it makes a good point about the way results are structured. I mean, obviously on your smartphone, there's fewer results that are going to be displayed on page 1. And so being in the top 2 is critically important. Whereas if you're on in the first page for regular desktop search, you're going to still get traffic. On a mobile site or on a smartphone in a mobile search environment, you won't. If you're beyond the first 1 or 2, you're not even going to show up because they're going to have to scroll way down or go to the next page. So it's important to be high in mobile search. But other than that, basic SEO rules still really qualify. Let's talk about mobile landing pages. So we mentioned a few companies that can provide mobile landing page services. And essentially what a mobile landing page is it's not a full-fledged mobile site, but it's a place that you can drive mobile traffic, especially mobile PPC traffic, which we'll talk about in a second, but also mobile SEO traffic that you can maybe redirect mobile search traffic to. So they can actually have a place that is mobile ready, that is mobile optimized, and not have to scroll around your site if it's not mobile ready or mobile optimized. So what are some features of mobile landing pages? Well, of course, there's smaller screens, so there's less data on the information. There's less data on the page. There's less copy. Just generally fewer words. The headlines need to be shorter. The bullet points need to be shorter. Very clear call to actions. So instead of download this report or put in your information for an estimate, instead of that information, you have very clear call to actions. Things like call me now, a one-field form fill. So put in your email address to get this special offer, things like that. There's also video is very common and very effective on mobile landing pages. I was actually talking to a marketer at a mobile landing page company just last week, and they were saying that they're seeing a huge amount of success with animations and videos on mobile landing pages. So just those are some of the changing sort of tactics that mobile landing page experts are using. But again, form fills are not important on these mobile landing pages. You certainly don't want to have a 6 to 8 field form on a mobile phone. That's not going to be effective. That's too much typing with thumbs. People aren't going to like that very much at all. So beware of that. Be wary of that. The other thing to note, too, is that click-to-call is extremely important. Having a phone number on your mobile landing page, as we talked about, is vital. So someone can get in touch with your business quickly and immediately. Also, having a store locator and clickable maps is important on a mobile landing page. So if someone wants to get to your business, they can. That's critical in a mobile environment. Because as we said, when somebody doesn't call a business after a mobile search, they generally want to visit that business. And so store locators and maps are important. So what are the companies that you can use to help you with mobile landing page development? The biggest, I believe, is a company called Duda Mobile. That's D-U-D-A mobile.com. And then another two that we've worked with, one is called atmio, A-T-M-I-O.com, and then another is sparkpage.com. These are mobile landing page mobile landing page companies that will allow you to create a mobile landing page. We're talking drag and drop for the functionality on the page. Very user-friendly, pretty darn inexpensive to have a mobile landing page. Here's a couple examples of mobile landing pages. This is for a car dealership. You can see here the first thing they've got, if you'll notice, they've got a phone number that is easy to access and is clickable. You can get driving directions immediately, and then you can also, if you want, down below, even though they're not highlighted, you can actually do a little bit of searching for pre-owned cars, new cars, parts and service. Over here on the back page, there's separate numbers for sales and service, and you can search inventory, get map and directions, or even schedule a service with a 2-field form on this page. So you'll notice, again, the two common things, driving directions on both of these pages, as well as phone numbers that are easily accessible and clickable as the first call to action on mobile landing pages. The big no-no is something like this. You don't want to have that on a mobile landing page. It's not going to be effective for your business if you have that sort of form on your mobile landing pages. No one's going to fill it out, and it's not going to be effective or useful. So let's talk about mobile PPC just for a moment. And again, I just want to give you those the names of those companies one more time. So we have Duda Mobile, Atmio, and SparkPage are the three really good mobile landing page companies. There are others. Those are good. And again, the main critical components are to have easily accessible phone numbers or click-to-call buttons, and then also have driving directions and/or maps. So let's talk about mobile PPC a little bit. And this needs to be defined a little bit, and we'll do this in the next couple of slides because it is a little complex and it's different than what we're used to with AdWords and things like that. So the first thing you need to do if you're conducting any mobile PPC is define your goal. So what is your conversion? Do you want to get an email opt-in? Do you want somebody to download your app? Do you want somebody to call and buy something right then? Or do you want somebody to get directions to your store? What's your goal? And then start with a clean slate. Don't assume any broad similarities with desktop campaigns. It's a different animal entirely. And then are your landing pages mobile ready? emulate your devices and browsers. So make sure that you have mobile functionality, whether it's a responsive site or a mobile landing page. And then think about your actual calls to action. So again, are you asking people to do more research with your copy? Or are you asking them to call now, put in your email address here, visit us, drive to us, whatever. Make sure your call to actions make sense. And then are you targeting specific devices? And then, of course, mobile analytics. What data are you capturing that will allow you to make better decisions about your marketing? That's an important question. So are you tracking phone calls? Are you looking at the right reports within Google Analytics or what other analytics tool you use to determine if your mobile sites are being interacted with? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about sort of how the mobile, and this is specifically focusing on Google. Let's talk a little bit about how that whole landscape's structured. So first, we have mobile pay-per-click. So these are mobile ads that are created from your regular AdWords interface. You pay Google for a click to your mobile landing page or website. So this functions essentially just like regular pay-per-click. We'll talk a little bit more about bidding strategy and things in a moment, but this functions anyway like a regular mobile, like a regular AdWords campaign. You're just driving them to a mobile landing page. So you pay per click, you pay-per-click. That's how Google monetizes this. The second model is pay-per-call. So you can actually use Google's pay-per-call system. So Google will assign a phone number for you to use, and then you pay Google every time that phone number is clicked. So Google will, again, assign you the number. That number will then appear in search ads on the smartphone when somebody Googles. And when they tap that number, that phone call will be routed to your business, and you simply pay Google every time the phone number is clicked. Then there's a third option, which is call extensions, and this is what we recommend in the mobile space. You do this from your regular AdWords page. You use a call extension. We'll show you how to do that. We'll show you some screenshots in a moment. And then you can use your own tracking phone numbers, not Google's. So therefore, you get your own metrics. And then you pay Google every time the number is clicked. Now, what are the benefits to doing that? We'll talk a little bit more about the benefits in a moment. But the main benefit is you get more data, and you get a lot more data. So if you're reliant on using Google's phone numbers, you're not going to have any in-depth data about the quality of those leads, nor are you going to be able to accurately determine your ROI for that campaign because you're only relying on Google Analytics Google's providing. Whereas if you use a call extension, you can use a call tracking number. You can determine if a call actually made it through to the business. You can determine if the lead quality of that call was good, and you can determine if there was a purchase made or an appointment booked on the phone. In our data that we've run, about half the calls that are clicked on through mobile PPC or call extensions do not actually end up being answered at the business. In other words, they're abandoned. Because there's a two-step process, right? You have to click your little thumb on the number, then it says call, and you have to click it again. So in many cases, those calls are not reaching the business. That's something you would not have known if you would have just relied on Google's analytics. That literally half your spend's just walking out the door. It's going to help you make better ROI campaign calculations. The second reason is you don't know what happens on the phone call if you use Google's numbers. You simply will have no idea, whereas if you use a tool like Log My Calls and use those numbers, you can actually extract data from the call to determine how many of those calls are actually leads versus people asking for directions, and the number is actually pretty high. It's about 40% of the calls that make it through to the business that are not actually sales inquiries. So our recommendation is to use call extensions. Cost on all these models is about the same, so you might as well use the model that provides you the most data. All right, getting started. So the first thing you do, and this is something that in preparing for this presentation, researching, reading a lot of articles on mobilemarketer.com, which is a great resource, as well as Search Engine Watch and Search Engine Journal, and focusing on the mobile articles, is pretty much the consensus is that you should separate your mobile campaigns from your desktop campaigns. just because the offers are going to be distinctly different, the copy is going to be different, and of course your calls to action are going to be different. And interestingly, your keywords might actually be different as well, just based on people trying to find information quickly. You're not going to have long tail keywords, things like that. And then bidding is important. You got to be at the top. If you're not maybe result 1 or 2, you're not going to be found on page 1, which on a mobile device means you're not going to be found. There's just less real estate on that screen for mobile ads to appear. So you can appear, I mean, gosh, there's tons of ads on the regular Google desktop page. There's ads at the top, there's 2 to 3 ads at the top, and there's oftentimes 5 to 8 ads on the side. Mobile, you don't have that. You have basically 1 or 2 ads at the top, and that's pretty much it in a mobile environment. So you might have to get a little more aggressive in terms of your bidding. Keyword strategies. Most of these data points and most of this information comes from Mobile Marketer and several articles that they have promoted. Obviously, mobile search is going to include a few more misspellings and shorter keyword phrases. Mentioned that a moment ago. And then do mobile-specific research using your advanced options and filters. The key with all of this, the key with your entire mobile strategy, is using research and analytics to determine what's working and what isn't. Don't just assume that everything you know about PPC and AdWords from your desktop campaigns is going to translate, because oftentimes it won't. The positive thing with mobile is that higher conversions are possible. The competition is still not quite as fierce, and if you're optimizing effectively, a lot of the people on mobile aren't. There was a study that I read on Mobile Marketer that said basically about 1/3 of people using mobile AdWords, mobile PPC on Google AdWords, just don't know what they're doing. It's quite obvious from the high-level data that Google's able to pull that these people are not optimizing. They're just kind of getting their feet wet with mobile. So you can immediately, if you have some level of knowledge, get ahead of about 33% of the people who are on using AdWords for mobile purpose, and immediately start to see your ads rank and appear more frequently and get better click-through rates, etc. Take advantage of location awareness. That's important. Take advantage of that's the beauty of mobile, right? Is that they know where you are. And they know where your clients and your prospects are. So take advantage of that. And then you can also target devices as well. And then the really interesting thing with mobile is that desktop off hours are often mobile on hours. So people at home in the evening, weekends, lunch hours. Some companies will totally turn back their Google AdWords spend during those specific times. Well, mobile is the exact opposite. Those are times when people are sitting around with their smartphone and they're conducting searches as they're watching TV or as they're sitting in maybe a meeting, or in the evenings they're with their family and they conduct a quick smartphone search while they're at dinner. So again, focus on the mobile on hours, which are very often different from desktop on hours. So sell the click. This is important and something that a lot of marketers in all phases don't do enough. You really have to sell the click because they're distracted. The very nature of a smartphone means there's a ton of distractions. So as they search, maybe they get a text message, they get an email from work, and their spouse calls them. They're distracted. That search may be down on their list. And so shorter ad copy, very quick. You can see this example from Esurance here. Call Esurance now to save on auto insurance. Boom, phone number, that's it. Copy like that will increase your conversion rates and your click-through rates by about 4 to 8%. So very direct ad copy. That's really important. And these people have short attention spans. I know I do when I'm on a smartphone. It's kind of like a puppy, right? You have their attention, and then there's a bird that flies by, and you don't have their attention anymore. It's the same thing. There's so many things going on a smartphone by the nature of how we use the devices that you've got to keep the copy short. You've got to make it very, very short and simple. Use call-centric phraseology. Things like call us now or call on your mobile or click to call. Things like that are going to improve your conversion rates dramatically. And then instant gratification. if I'm on a smartphone, I don't want to have to navigate 15 pages to get what I need. So make sure you're clear about how long it's going to take to do what you want them to do. So call now, buy now, call us today. One click and put in your email address to get this coupon or whatever. Or click this to sign up for our text message opt-in campaign. So specify the number of clicks it's going to take to complete the action you want them to complete. Or in the call world, call now, buy now, words like that are useful. And then consider even mobile-specific offers. So not just mobile-specific copy, but actually mobile-specific offers. So if someone visits your mobile landing page, maybe they get something that someone on a desktop won't. Or even deeply discounted things for a limited time for mobile users. Mobile Marketer had a great case study the other day about a large retailer that did very specific mobile campaigns and saw huge revenue increases from their mobile campaigns for that because they were doing that. And obviously in the mobile space, you've got to clarify between a smartphone and a tablet. Obviously on a tablet, you don't want to do click-to-call. Videos are good on tablets. So is rich media and animations. That's what the people at AppMio are telling us, is that their animations and the rich media are doing really well on tablets. And then on smartphones, of course, click-to-call and map lookups. Beware of flash, obviously, and long ad copy. Long ad copy is terrible. Short, 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 short. If you think it's short enough, take a couple words off. Just slice words everywhere. All right, so this is setting up the call extension. You'll notice the AdWords screen. Within Ad Extensions, you click on the Call Extensions button. You put in a new extension, and then you put in the call extension phone number. As I said, the benefit of this is going to allow you to gather data on the calls. So one of the case studies we did on this was with a Holiday Inn Express. And we found two really, really interesting things. We ran mobile call extension ads for them, and we found that about 40% of the calls that Google was billing them for never even made it to the property. They weren't answered. So there's two scenarios for that. Number one, the call was never actually completed, so they didn't actually call the number. They just clicked on it one time and didn't push the call button. Number two, they called it, didn't realize what they were doing, accidentally called it, or found their answer elsewhere as they were calling. Maybe it rang once or twice and then was never answered. So 40% of the ad spend right there was wasted immediately, and they would have never known that had they not used call extensions. The second thing we found that was interesting is about half of those calls that made it through were not sales inquiries. There were people asking for directions, people asking about tourist destinations in the area, but they weren't people wanting to book a room at the hotel. Again, important information if you're making your campaign decisions, something that you would have not been able to gather were it not for call extensions and using a call tracking number from Log My Calls that would allow you to get that data. So what are the differences with mobile? Then I want to get into a few ways to extract data. So bullet-pointed differences. In mobile PPC and SEO, the most common action is a phone call, period. The user intent is different, which means people are entering the funnel lower. So for example, if I am researching a hotel, so maybe I want to travel somewhere, I will do the research on my laptop or my desktop. I'll look at the area, I'll look at pictures of the room, I'll look at different pricing options. But when I search for it on my smartphone, I've either done all that research or I don't need to do that research. I just want to make a phone call or I want to book a room right then. Or in the automotive industry, no one searches tires on their smartphone because they're curious about educating themselves on tires. They search tires because they need a new set of tires or their car will crash. Same thing with anything related to automotive or home services or medical or legal or dental. People will not search those things on a smartphone, any keyword variation at all, unless they're ready to take action. They're simply not doing research on windows in their house on a smartphone. They're just not. The only thing people do research on a smartphone are random things that they're just trying to find out as they think of them. There was a very fascinating article in Search Engine Land recently about people doing searches on smartphones to win bets or to come up with answers to questions. So smartphone searches for random subjects that they categorized went way up during lunch hours because they assume people are out with their colleagues from work. They're talking about random stuff, and maybe they're, what about this thing? What about this thing? And they're searching pretty random phrases. So long story short, people are not going to research your business on a smartphone. They're going to take action. Mobile clicks are still selling slightly below market value. And then you can assess success of your campaigns within Google AdWords, but also using other tools like there's actually tools that will help you track how often your map lookup features are used, things like that, and then also, of course, call tracking. And then mobile PPC for smartphones. Remember, mobile users will absorb information very quickly, and they tend to make phone calls. They want very concise copy, calls to action, everything, headlines. Don't be scared of mobile. It can actually help your ad spend reach an entirely different level of effectiveness. And use the data that you have. Don't ignore the data or assume just to roll it into your mobile, your standard marketing data. Mobile's different. That's important. Now let's talk about mobile analytics, and then we'll open it up for some questions. So I mentioned this case study. We put log my calls local numbers and click to call extensions. We put those phone numbers out there with phrases like call us now. For every $10,000 spent, Google measured 1,800 calls. The actual call analytics, even though Google billed us for 1,800 calls, only 890 of the calls were completed, so 48%, meaning 51.7% of the calls were not actually completed. There were only 270 qualified opportunities, that's 15%, and 180 reservations booked, so 10% of the total. So the three really interesting things about this are, number one, again, none of this data would have been, we couldn't have gathered it had we not used call tracking as a call extension within Google AdWords, number one. Number two is even though only 10% of the calls resulted in a reservation, our ROI was still way positive. It was 3x. The revenue was 3x what the campaign spend was. So even though that's only a 10% number, the ROI was still really good, which shows the power of mobile. But the other thing it shows is that's still really high. Like 10% is really good. I guarantee you that if you told a web marketer, like, okay, 10% of the people who fill out your forms are going to buy from you, they would lose their mind with happiness and glee. That's a really good number. The other stunner about this, I think, is that 51.7% of the calls that Google billed for never made it. So there's a fundamental flaw in how they're doing things, but you can overcome that and be armed with data if you use call extensions and use call tracking numbers within those extensions. So there's about 420 billion words spoken each day on business phone calls. That's a lot of words. A lot happens after the phone rings. If you're just pulling data about how often phone calls come from various sources, that's not going to give you enough information, which is, as I said, why we launched Conversation Analytics. So basically the way it works is this. Someone speaks into the phone. There's a phone call made. A prospect calls a business. They tap on their little mobile phone, and they connect to whatever business they're trying to reach. Our system isolates that audio, breaks it down into two channels. We can tell who's the employee. We can tell who's the caller. Then we run that stuff through our call analytics engine, and we start to look for cues in those words said on the call to determine what happened on the call. So what words and cues can we look for to determine if the caller was a good lead that was ready to buy? What can we look for to determine if the employee answering the phone answered and handled the call effectively versus not? And then what else, in terms of the result of the call that we can extract, is what words can we use to determine if the call resulted in an appointment or resulted in a sale? Those are important indicators and important metrics that we need to extract from the call. The Conversation Analytics does. And then based on all of that analysis, it pulls things out like good lead, bad lead, sale made, not sale made, missed opportunity, etc. This is how the UI looks. So you can literally get down to exactly the data that you're trying to see and the data you're trying to gather. And then finally, thank you for your time. If you want more information, here's the 2 resources I would recommend. One of them is on your screen, logmycalls.com/webinar. We have a lot of webinars about mobile marketing in our webinar library. They're free. You can watch them, past ones without filling out a form. To register for upcoming ones, just simply fill out the registration form. And then the other resource is not on the screen here, but I'll pull it up, is blog.logmycalls.com. This is our blog. We update it at least once a day, generally twice a day, and it's got really good information in it about marketing topics. So I would encourage you to go here to get a little bit of education about marketing, as well as the Log My Calls webinar series. Those are going to be very useful resources for you. Let's see if we have any questions here.
One moment. I'm just going to go ahead and give the prompt on how to queue up for audio questions as well.
Great.
Thank you. We will now take questions. You may type your question in the question box to the left side of the web presentation, or you can press star, then the 1 key on your touchtone phone to be placed into a queue. If your question has been answered or you wish to remove yourself from the queue, please press the pound key.
And you know what? While we're waiting, one of the questions we often get about mobile is, why are phone calls so prevalent, and why is that a big deal? The reason phone calls are so prevalent in a mobile world is because it's a quick action you can take. It's a common action. You're on your phone after all. It's the whole purpose is to make a phone call. And then it's pretty stunning when you see how effective calls are in terms of driving revenue, because it's not just that they're researching, it's that they're ready to buy. That's why they're conducting the mobile search to begin with. So the very nature of the search itself indicates that they're going to have pretty quickly made a decision to buy. The other thing that I think is fascinating with phone calls and mobile search and this whole world is that it's still largely in front of us. A lot of the growth's happened, but much of the growth has not happened yet. This entire mobile world still has a huge amount of growth to go through and to endure. So there's going to be still massive amounts of growth in the mobile space. And then the other question we get asked real quick before I conclude is this: what about specific industries? Like, are there industries that don't care about phone calls or that shouldn't care about mobile? And the answer to the first question, or the latter first, is every business should care about mobile. We're in the B2B space, but we're starting to see really large amounts of traffic come from our mobile devices. So every business should care about that, especially if you're in the local space at all. And then secondarily, are there any industries that shouldn't care about phone calls? Really, the only industries that shouldn't care about phone calls at all are retailers. So like very few, Walmart may not need to care about phone calls, or a restaurant perhaps. But if you're in the local space pretty much at all, phone calls are at least going to be important to you. And then even B2B companies and large national brands generate a lot of revenue from their phone calls. We were actually just looking today on our new accounts so far this month. Half of them have come from phone calls, even though we've received, 5 to 6 times more web leads than phone calls. Half of our new accounts come from phone calls. So phone calls generate new business and new revenue for businesses more readily than do web leads. Yeah, any questions coming in other than those?
I'm showing no audio questions at this time. Do you have any more web questions?
Let me look through here. The only other question I think is, how can people get in touch with me? You can see my email on the screen. You can follow us on Twitter at logmycalls. And then again, those 2 resources I would recommend are logmycalls.com/webinar and blog.logmycalls. So with that, I think go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to make?
Yeah, the only final thing I would say is start taking action now. Getting a mobile landing page does not cost a lot of money, and then setting up call tracking doesn't cost a lot of money either. You need to have the analytics in place, and you need to have the infrastructure in place to begin down the mobile path. So those are my two final thoughts.
Thank you. If you've enjoyed today's program and would like to become a member of ASM, contact customer service at 866-226-0828 to learn more about exclusive membership benefits, including 2 free live webinars when you join. This concludes today's live webinar. Thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect.